Okay, we're back in the vehicle assembly building. Look at our wonderful untitled lunar refueler with brand new, less explodey fixes. It's been a while since I've recorded the last episode of this. I do remember that we ended the last one fixing things up. I have also installed a couple of new mods. I don't know if I can find any of them, to be honest. But I added some new parts to the game just for the fun of it and because that's the type of idiot that I am. I'm just double checking what in all is going on around here. So we got this, and yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure that I remembered to do 2 docking ports because that is the mission plan I had in mind. I would like symmetry on my fairings. And okay. I guess without further ado, let's see if I can actually put this guy into orbit. So last episode we were having quite a few problems with explosions, and hopefully this time we won't have that same situation. But on the other hand, this time I also remember dramatically less about how I'm supposed to fly the rocket, so this is just going to be interesting. So, I've already fucked up. I remembered something. I need to wait for the launch window, and I need to set up KOS. This is good. The fact that I remember that I'm doing things wrong is important. So, we're trying to reach the moon. We need to target the moon here. There's that probe, yeah. Moon. Set as target. For now, we're going to do that. Eventually, we will actually target the place we want to go. And just... I think this is right. I don't know. And I'm a little bit late, but that's fine. I believe I may be rolling incorrectly. I have again forgotten whether this is yaw, pitch, and roll or the other way around, so we're gonna have a good time with that. Gonna hit this at 150. Look at these lovely clouds we get to pass through, by the way. That appears to be our yaw. I guess we'll just improvise a little bit. Our relative inclination is looking really good at the moment. Not so much anymore. Definitely not that. Alright, I'm gonna let my inclination get as low as it's gonna go, and then I'm gonna SAS it. I know right now I'm probably on a very excessively steep trajectory, but that is fine. Right. We're losing these guys, yep. I think I fucked up. I don't think I staged this properly. Whatever, let's see what happens. I have also fucked that up. But at least that fuck up is pretty. Look at that. Yeah, alright. So trying to fuck too much with this is kind of a killer, but if I have to refly it, I definitely need to save messing with my inclination for this part of flight where I'm just flying with this. Looks like all my engines are lit. That's nice. Alright. Preparing to switch back into KOS guidance because that does a much better job than SAS of holding a specific spot that I want to be at. Alright. We're just hitting the pitch that I want to hold, so let's have that stick. Look at all these runways, Jesus. I really like that part of Realism Overhaul, where they have all the launch sites and shit. But anyway, just looking at our trajectory, I think that I've mostly fixed the too steep issue. I don't know if this is now too shallow. That is a bit of a concern. We are now in space, though. So actually... Alright. We have lost the first stage, so... Get rid of that guy. Release the fairing. We choose one of these engines, and we want to fire the ullage thrusters for a little while, and then ignite. Good. I will also press the I am now in space button. I do think I want to go back to thrusting upwards a little bit, though. Obviously, thrusting sideways is what gets you into orbit. I guess maybe that's not strictly speaking obvious, but if you know how orbital mechanics work, staying in orbit isn't about being high, obviously. We are fairly high up, we're just not going very fast. You need to go really fast to stay in orbit. So basically, the way that this part of ascent works, because the thrust to weight ratio is fairly low here, I guess we're at 1.0 right now, so that's fine. But we want to make sure that we're not losing the time to apoapsis. We don't want to fall back into the atmosphere, but we want to thrust as close to horizontal as possible to stay in space. Because our velocity going up is mostly wasted, our velocity staying horizontal is mostly going to go towards getting us into an orbit. Actually, we're losing this. Hang on. 5. Does this make things worse or better? Worse. Significantly worse. I'm just looking at our inclination being bad again. Technically, I shouldn't zero the inclination. I should try to get the inclination as close as I can to the proper inclination to intercept the orbit of our target. Because as you can see, it's a little bit inclined. But it's very close to being equatorial, so I think I'm okay with this. Thrusting out a little more to get that inclination lower. Again, I don't think I feel the need to explain my rationale on this one. Oh yeah, the liquid fluorine engines. That's gonna be a fun time. How are we doing? Probably a minute away from orbit. I'm okay with going a little bit past apoapsis, so I think our heading is okay. Of course, apoapsis is the generic term. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I am, of course, just talking to fill up time. Apoapsis refers to the farthest your orbit gets from the parent body, but there are specific words for what type of body you're orbiting around. Since we are orbiting around the Earth, the correct term to use would be apogee, G for Earth. Around the Moon, the common term might be perisaloon or aposaloon for lowest and highest, respectively. Around the Sun, it might be perihelion and aphelion. I don't remember all the others. I think Jupiter is perijove and apojove, but I might be making it up. I am now going back up, so I'm just going to thrust horizontal. And see my time to apoapsis is increasing, which is not necessarily the best. Not necessarily bad, of course, but I would like to move our inclination over a little bit more. Ah, crap. Did we overshoot it, or is this just how good it gets? I think this is just how good it gets. Okay. So at this point, I will just do prograde. Thank you, KOS. That is the phase of flight for which KOS is going to get used. And I think I've done a pretty good single burn circularization here, because we're getting really close to apogee, and we're also getting really close to orbit. Whatever. I was going to show the trajectory around the Earth, but that's fine. You can see our periapsis is just dipping out of the ground as we're a couple seconds away. And now we're in orbit. Yay! I guess, yeah. Look at that. Planet back there. We need to go back. So I screwed up. Shit. Whatever. Look at all these wonderful planets there are in our lovely solar system. Real solar system has actually done a good job of including lots of different bodies. Look at this Pluto texture we've got. Somehow there is an angle from which you could see the Heart New Horizons spotted. But here we are, back on Earth. You can see we're in a nice low orbit. And okay, just judging based on this probe, so this guy kind of went towards the moon at this angle. Telling by that, I think I kind of want to go here to hit the moon. And since that is a guess it's not correct, but there's the moon. Hush, I don't want Kerbal constructs. I have never wanted this. Maybe that's too mean to Kerbal constructs, but I genuinely do not care about it, so... Hello, can I please focus view on the moon? Fine. There. So you can see we've actually got a pretty neat trajectory here where we're going to fly by the moon once, then on the next orbit we'll fly by the moon again 2 days later, and then we'll fly by the moon another time a month later. So that's neat. I'm just going to... Oh dear. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So this orbit is not... Oh, that's 60 days. So this is... We're hitting it in 2 days, 30 days, and 60 days. So I should be paying attention to this one. I don't know why I thought it was this color. Maybe because it's that color on the first branch of the node, and it just went all the way around. Anyway, so we've got... It's going to hit the moon in all 3 of the next orbits, but we want to hit it on the very next orbit, because otherwise our Kerbals will die. So I want to see what direction I need to push this. It looks like if this is the right way. So clearly I could be making a more efficient transfer to the moon. Because presumably instead of changing this, I could just change the angle a little bit. You know, if I do this. But our time is going to be extremely inexact anyway. Because, you know, we're gonna be burning a nuclear engine here. It says target. So if I came in on this trajectory, what I would be wanting to do is burn here just to get captured by the moon, do a burn out at the far edge of lunar orbit to get into the right plane, and then try to circularize and arrive at it. So sort of, you know, just planning it out even though we're not going to actually execute this. I guess we could do this with that burning, but control locked? What? I have no connection to the ground, do I? Well, that's unfortunate. Gotta love SAS absolutely struggling with this. I guess we'll do this in 2 burns, right? So we'll make 1 burn here. We'll just burn off the rest of our liquid hydrogen, and then we will revisit the situation later. Why are these not firing? Do I not have Aerosine on that stage? That's kind of a funny mistake. Right, anyway. So, just like last time, we ullage. Hello. Can I not use these controls because we're out of contact with the ground? That's not very kind. I guess we can't actually execute this maneuver because we don't have a relay anywhere. Cool. Very, very nifty. I don't remember where the antennas are on this to try to... There you go. But we don't get to steer them in any capacity, so it doesn't really matter. They are deployed, though. This is why one of the first things I will do if I play a campaign, which I frankly think is significantly more interesting, is That worked. All right. Figured it out. One of the first things I do when I play a campaign is to actually deploy a network of communication satellites so that I don't have to deal with problems where I'm trying to execute a maneuver and I just don't have contact. That is more brutal in remote tech, though, where I would have absolutely zero control of the vehicle and not be able to do things like firewall the throttle and hope that my RCS properly settles the propellant before the J2s ignite, which is what I just did. All right, so that's our first maneuver. Guess I'm not allowed to move it forward in orbit, so that's fine. I can't control it because the control is locked. There. What? A decoupler collided into the J2. I don't know which one, but we didn't lose anything and we're about to ditch the J2s anyway. So, if we move this guy forward in orbit and then go back to the moon. No, that's okay. We don't need to control our thrust. Okay, maybe this maneuver node just needs to be replotted. Stop it. I didn't do that. I am trying to control the map view. Stop doing those things. We have to do it the long way because otherwise it will try to throttle up and ignite an engine that's not working. I'm sure there are better ways to do this. I just don't remember the control button at the moment, and I'm being a lazy ass. If I stretch it out from the same point, the moon shouldn't move enough to make a huge difference. Yes. So, actually, if we do look at the moon, grab this parrot. Stop it. That one's on me. That one's just me clicking the wrong thing. If I scoot it a little bit, so that's just about as far as we can push it like that. It's still going to be our target. There we go. This is pretty nice. Is it? What if I make it closer? Actually, this would be amazing if we could get this. Basically, we want the orbits to be low and far away from this guy. So 99 to 129. I don't know. It's going to be a little bit challenging to interact with, to rendezvous with this guy because it's so elliptical. But maybe we could make a burn here to circularize it after I'm done. Anyway, so I'm thinking we do this. Then we add a maneuver here at the ascending node that basically just captures us, and unfortunately our Apo saloon ends up fairly far away anyway. Something like this. Right, so, yeah. And then here, at this node, when we're fairly far away from the moon and going fairly slowly, then we can make this maneuver. To get our orbital plane fairly synced up. right? Something like this. And then after that, we can start fucking with, how do we get a rendezvous? We're gonna go here. We're gonna burn this to circularize it. What can we do to actually find ourselves in a trajectory that encounters this spacecraft? Which actually looks like if we did this correctly, we could get pretty close, just like this. But it's not worth planning that far out anyway, because I am about to mess it up. Like, I don't want to precisely plan these maneuvers because I know for a fact we're not going to get particularly close to this execution with it. Because we're about to use the nuclear stage. So just for the sake of the video, I'm going to warp forward into the light. Beautiful. And we'll separate this stage. And that'll rest in low Earth orbit for the rest of the time because there's no orbital decay. I think this orbit would stay up for a few thousand years, though. Vanguard 1 was in a somewhat similar orbit, and it's going to stay up for about 1,000 years. So, close enough to forever for our purposes. Anyway. So with this, I'm just checking. We're going to make a burn of 2,200 meters per second. This is good. We're actually going to complete it on the nuclear stage. Unlike last time, I remember we ran out of nuclear stage and had to complete the burn on the service propulsion system, which is kind of why we're in the situation of having to launch a refueler alongside all the tomfoolery that was occurring at the time. I'm sorry. So, that burn is going to take probably 15 minutes. It is a purely prograde burn. What altitude will it happen at, I'm wondering. I need to find the button to do this correctly. There is a button to just jump back to the ship, but I'm being an idiot. So if I burn fairly down here, it should be fine. All right. So 15 minutes before that will be, I want to warp to about 1 hour. No, stop it. I need to find how to turn Kerbal Construct's selecting shit off. I don't want this. Stop. Alright. I also need to, I don't know why click-through blocker is not doing its thing correctly. So anyway, 2 hours, 9 minutes, so somewhere around 2 hours, 7, 1 hour, 57, okay. I'm supposed to start the maneuver out back here somewhere. Yeah, you know what? Screw this maneuver node. We're just going to do, a series of apogee raising burns, right? Around this maneuver node, we're going to burn, 5 minutes on either side, 1 or 2 times, just to get the apogee high enough that the burn duration is reasonable. So this is officially a placeholder. Warp here. Hopefully I have connection here. Yep, I am actually over Kennedy Space Center, so that is pretty nice. I would like to point retrograde, or prograde, I'm sorry. We're going to... I didn't need to do that. Ignite the nuclear engine. It takes forever to spin up, but once it's getting fed fuel, we don't need to worry about it. Look at that beautiful plume go. Alright. Now under the power of physics warp, accelerating us at 4 times speed so we don't actually have to sit here for 10 minutes while I do an orbit raising burn. We will watch the Florida coast go away. This is kind of the uninteresting part of the video, where if I was allowing myself the luxury of time spent editing the video, I would be spending it fast forwarding through this or just cutting. I don't know, I don't really like jump cuts for this sort of thing. I would probably show it at like 10 times speed or something. Oh, that's a nice shot. Or this for that matter. I really like the plume on this engine, but I wouldn't, if we was making an actual video where I'm editing it properly, I wouldn't sit through all of this time spent watching the rocket just do its thing at 4 times time acceleration. Like, this is not especially entertaining, I'm guessing. But it is what it is. We're going to burn until the node is t plus 5 minutes. So in other words, 5 minutes after the node. That's not quite entirely balanced, but I'm okay with that. That'll tend to scooch our apogee in this direction towards the left, or counterclockwise if you prefer, which is also the direction the moon orbits in, which makes sense because we are in the moon's plane. So by doing that, we're basically both accounting for the time difference in the burn and not wasting our time. So it actually looks like this is going to be our only orbit-raising burn, because we have cut down the delta V to below 1 kilometer per second, which is quite nice. But we're going to call that good. I'm going to say 940 meters per second is the start of the next burn. We're going to do it about here. So does that actually put us on a good trajectory to, God damn it, to hit the moon? It does. But we are hitting it retrograde, which is not ideal. I want to hit the moon going in this direction so that we, if we did it the other way, we would be flipped, right? We would be orbiting in the opposite direction as untitled spacecraft, which would make our correction burn, or our plane synchronization burn, insanely expensive. I guess what I could do in the interests of time is burn this all the way close to the surface and do it at the same time. I don't know, I'll play with the maneuver nodes once we get something. But anyway, this is our next encounter burn. So 926, I don't know why it's not showing me an estimated burn time. That's kind of impolite in my opinion. But guesstimating based on the delta V, it's probably going to be a 5-minute burn. So that would mean we'll warp to like 5 minutes before. Can I just choose the Earth, please? I don't want to see Kerbalism. Shit. I don't seem to be able to turn it off. I need to figure out how to turn it off. In case you can't tell, it is bothering me tremendously that I keep seeing this Kerbal Constructs stuff. Like, it's cool that it exists, right? But I don't really want it all cluttering up my screen. What I would really like to do is be able to just click on Earth. But when I do that, I seem to be selecting either sites or the moon. And we have warped way past it. Because this fucking thing is pissing me off so much. No, stop. Okay. I don't need to see these sites. I would really love to turn them off, please. Here I could select the... whatever. Alright. So I have to do this whole thing again because I have been freshly screwed over by the powers that be. RCS, stop it. See, last time we got a pretty darn good encounter because we were very fuel efficient, and now it's just not. What? How is the node still 12 hours behind? Okay, we somehow warped several orbits ahead. That is real cool. I am very, very happy that happens. Thank you, Kerbal Constructs, and lack of me figuring out the correct buttons, because in fairness, that part is on me. Alright, so our burn went from being 920-ish meters per second to being much bigger. I don't even know if that's low enough. Does this say no? Oh, we'll be fine. I'll adjust. I'll do a correction burn if we need it otherwise. Or I guess I could. Jeez. Yeah, something like this. Because the difference, small changes in the burn make such a big difference that it's not worth thinking about. So, no, I don't get to focus my shit. This should do the job. I don't know. I need to relearn how to use all these mods. Some of these I haven't used ever before, because what I would really like to know is how long do I have before my Kerbals die? But I will have to switch to Untitled Spacecraft to figure that out. I think. Which is kind of absurd, but I would really think Kerbalism would give me that information. It seems that it does not. Actually, yeah, this can go away now. Alright, so last time I estimated this would be about a 5-minute burn. This is probably... You know what, I'm still going to live with a 5-minute burn. We're just going to do a correction. Look at the view. At least it's a nice view of the Earth from up here. Look at that. Look at that. Alright, so I'm going to ignite this. This has a spool up time of about 15 seconds, so I'm going to start thrusting forward now to stabilize the propellant. And at 45, we're going to light it. This thing does have a shitload of ignitions. Nuclear engines don't really have limited ignitions. Chemical engines are much more difficult to quote-unquote ignite than a nuclear engine. In a nuclear engine, you're going to tend to just run the nuclear reactor often, or at least you're going to have it running when you want to make a burn. And nuclear reactors can just keep running. So all you're really doing is turning a valve to let the fuel flow out instead of doing a closed loop thing and maybe bringing up the power on the reactor. So the time to spool up, it should be a long time, and maybe 14 seconds is even too low, but the number of ignitions, I would imagine you can ignite an engine like this hundreds of times. And anyway, I will again invoke my time acceleration spell. This will be the probe saying goodbye to Earth, as it will never see Earth again. Bye, Earth. Hopefully our astronauts will see Earth again, or rather our Kerbonauts. But this probe is going to stick in orbit of the moon forever. It wouldn't have anything to do if it returned besides burn up in the atmosphere anyway, so it'll become a little lunar communications relay. I don't know why we've got such a big rule oscillation going on with the SAS. It's just over-controlling the rule. Maybe it's physics warp making it a little bit wonky or exaggerating it, but there's definitely some over-control situation there. So I estimated that this burn would be 5 minutes long, and we're now 5 minutes after I estimated we should start, after the spool up time ended. So I obviously estimated the burn time a little bit low. Not purely because we had to lengthen it. I was short about a minute on the first estimation, but as we get under 100, I'll reduce the time warp to 0 and make sure I cut off at the right time. Six, five, two. I probably shouldn't have done that. That's as good as we're gonna get. Alright. I don't actually remember if these need ullage. I think that's pressurized fuel, so it might not, but need to remember that later. So we have put ourselves onto an actually pretty nice orbit. Don't know if we... Yeah, I'm just doing some corrections with the RCS, because that is much easier than trying to ignite the nuke. So at about 100, now I'm going to push myself. Obviously, I'm not correctly balanced because trying to make a rotation happen with the RCS just is really fucking up our specific parry apps, but that's okay. I like how this tells you, because it now has units, this engine carries only 5 liters of uranium. And we have consumed absolutely none of it, because nuclear reactors are that fuel efficient. Anyway, now that we finally managed to get on trajectory, I want to set this as target. What I would like to do is see if we can fix the node in any way. So like, can I make a burn here to correct the ascending node? It would be much more fuel efficient to do this the other way, obviously. And also, obviously, I will have to correct our orbit because we are now going inside of the planet. But maybe I can... actually, trying to fix it is really hard when my controls are mapped weird and the spacecraft is tumbling in the roll axis. I would appreciate it if it would stop. Anyway. So obviously, the only thing more fuel efficient than fixing our orbit at the slowest point, plane change wise, is to fix our orbit way out here before we even encounter it. Because a very small change in velocity way back here, several days before we get here, almost 2 days before we encounter the moon at all, a very small change in our velocity there is going to make a relatively big difference into where in the moon's sphere of influence and what path we take during this encounter, which in turn means that a relatively small change in velocity with our RCS system, reaction control system, yes, makes actually a substantial difference to the angle of our ascending node. Because if you look at the difference when these numbers are going down when I am or am not thrusting, I know you can't see what buttons I'm pressing, but when I stop thrusting, these numbers stop changing, and these are still ticking down rather quickly. So I'm not making a big acceleration. You can see my thrust to weight ratio is only 0.13, which is going to be an acceleration, because if you look at this, the nuclear engine has a TWR of over 1, and it can only deliver 2.68. So this guy is giving us somewhere around a fifth of a meter per second acceleration. You know what? This would actually be reasonably good for the burn sort of schedule that I said earlier, where we do a big capture here at periaps, and then just make a little plane change at the apogee. So I will remember that I can do that as an option if I can't get the node close to perfect. .5, yeah, it stopped changing. All right. You can also look over here how slowly the delta V on our RCS is for how little I'm changing the speed of this orbit. But I am going to make an effort to keep these two guys right on top of each other. And in so doing, that maneuver that I said before will be incredibly efficient, where we burn at the periaps to put ourselves on a really proper, extremely elliptical trajectory, and then fix the ascending node, or fix the ascending and descending node at the same time at the descending node, which will be at the apolune, or aposolin. Yeah, perfect. All right. That'll be quite good. So if we add a maneuver here, in an ideal universe, this burn would be 670 meters per second to exactly burn out the nuclear drive. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. Yeah, there. Sit it a little bit just to save as much fuel as possible. I mean, we can look at the apoaps time. By pushing it out a day, we save a little bit of fuel on this. But I'm not going to worry about this too much. We're basically going to get here and then burn to get as close as we can to captured. All right. So this is going to be the plan. And meanwhile, I'm going to switch to Untitled Spacecraft and check in on their supplies. I do remember that we packed quite a good bit of life support into the refueling vehicle, so I'm not too worried about mission longevity after we arrive. But mission longevity here, waiting for it to arrive, might be a thing, because I don't remember how long we spec the mission out to have. I know that I generally overspec it, but anyway. So we are full of waste. That's not ideal. The actual Apollo missions, almost all of them dumped the waste. They would just, literally eject the waste out of port in the command module. but I don't know if I have that capability on these craft. The only mission on which they wouldn't have done that would have been Apollo 13, because they lost their flight computers, and the change in velocity from throwing stuff out the side of the capsule by venting urine actually had the potential to screw up their reentry corridor and make them either burn up or skip off the atmosphere and sail off into space for longer than they had. A lot of people, if you watch the movie, they'll say, "Oh, they'll sail into space forever," and that's not really, strictly speaking, true. What really would have happened is they go into a trajectory that will take them longer to hit the atmosphere and re-enter than they have before they run out of food, water, and air. Unless they get incredibly unlucky and encounter the moon and get thrown out of the Earth orbit by the moon. I don't know. Maybe that was possible. Anyway, so we are sort of venting liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. I forgot that we even carried those. Maybe for a fuel cell that I don't have installed, because that's default on the vessel. Anyways, cool. I like this new science stuff. Anyway, what I want to do is see, we have water at about 3/4 supply, food at about 3/4 supply, oxygen at about 3/4 supply. So those are all spec'd correctly. And that means that we could stay another 18 days. If that sounds correct to you, which I'm going to assume it does because you're not here to tell me otherwise. Cool. So what I will say is that if we can get here in the next 10 days, so if we go back to our friend the refueler, leaving a good margin of error in case we need to abort the mission or something. C's. Yeah, for some reason this has wastewater and waste because I actually bothered carrying it, but the other one doesn't. Actually, I don't remember. I seem to remember the other guy carrying a lot more supplies than this. So maybe we don't quite have that much time. I remember trying to allocate quite a bit of supplies here, but 60 liters of food doesn't feel like that much. That might not be great. So, okay. One day, how long do we have until this planned apogee? 5 days, and then see, until we get here, we have 8 days. That's not great. So I'll probably have to manage this to be about 3 days away. Like if I don't know. We'll pay attention to that when we're doing it. Anyway. We'll warp over to the sphere of influence, spinning like a crazy thing. Because we still have unarrested roll going on. Thanks to persistent rotation. This is a habit from rather old KSP, where physics would go very wonky if you went over the boundary of a sphere of influence in time warp. The calculation for on-rails physics wouldn't work correctly at that transition. So I think they actually fixed that bug, but I'm still in the habit of going over the sphere of influence boundary, which this calls an encounter. I am now in the sphere of influence of the moon. I still tend to do this by at 1 times speed, is what I'm trying to say. So, okay. This is gonna be probably a 2-minute burn. Ooh. And we are actually getting that. So, this warped us a little bit closer than I thought it would. That's probably fine. Look at how pretty that side of Earth is. Kerbal Space Program is one of those games that I always think this game is really beautiful. And this isn't even the best visual setup that I've had on the game, I don't think. And even that looks like, well, shit compared to Kitten Space Agency. Because that game looks kind of awesome. Shout out to the devs of that stuff. I guess I can help this along slightly if I do this. I mean, it's not exactly adding a lot, but hey. So I would like to get time to apoapsis of 3 days. That is my objective. Even though it wastes fuel on the plane change, I'm okay with that. So yes, here we are with the Oberth effect helping us get a nice capture into lunar orbit. The Oberth effect is a nice little thing about rocket physics that basically says you want to make a maneuver when you are as close to a planet as you can, when you're moving as fast as possible. You basically get the effects of your fuel are basically magnified. And that's just one of those. Orbital mechanics is a big, complicated thing that, you know, Kerbal Space Program is really good at teaching you. So maybe if you're interested in this game, I should do a little bit of an episode on orbital mechanics. And this apogee is only 2 days away. I'm okay with this. So, what we will do is circularize at the apogee. Which, yeah, snap time to... Damn it. Where is it? Snap it to descending node with the target. Perfect. And then I'm just gonna make a... this... So there, you can see it's only going to be a 10 meter per second burn, hopefully, to get that right. I'm going to do that burn with RCS. I'm not going to use the nuclear engine. It's kind of imprecise for this. Stop. Just don't. Yeah, you can really see our RCS is pushing us to the left. Maybe because these thrusters are small? That could be. Because our center of mass is somewhere here, probably, right now. So these big thrusters are creating a big fulcrum moment. Anyway, I'm just gonna watch this nice Earth set. Very nice. Lots of pictures. And we'll just time accelerate our way out there. So here we are. We are relatively close to the node. So I'm just going to start burning and see if I can how close to zero I can get our relative inclination. Obviously, the closer to zero we get, the the less we have to work to get a decent rendezvous. And since the orbit we're trying to rendezvous with is huge, is elliptical as hell, I need all the help I can get. Let's be realistic on this. So we actually managed to make the burn entirely. Just looking at this. Yeah, 0.03. I can live with 0.03. So that's our plane change maneuver. It might get screwed up later, but I will turn off the RCS so the RCS doesn't try to do anything and in the process fuck this up. So now, focusing the moon, I would like to circularize at the periapsis. Yeah, this sort of maneuver. That's close enough. I'm not being exact about this because I am going to be doing burns with different engines, and I'm just going to get close to periapse and burn until I get to. So this is basically for my own reference. So that's going to be about 630 meters per second, which is going to be 2 minutes with this and maybe another 2 minutes with the fluorine drive, which is what I'm going to call that because it sounds cool. So 4 minutes. So I want to get 2 minutes before the periapse. Cool. Thank you. I'll just click retrograde so we get there fairly well. I'll give it a minute to get on target, so that means 3 minutes before the periapse. Our time to periapse is 2 days, 11 hours, 54 minutes, so 2 days, 51 minutes. That sounds good. Actually, if again, one of those things, if I was playing career, I would have stuck some antennas onto this stage because it's going to stay in lunar orbit for the rest of time. Again, because orbits in KSP don't decay. In real life, orbits around the moon are extremely unstable, and this specific orbit would almost certainly either crash into the moon or get ejected into, the dark depths of space, aka solar orbit. Why am I 7 hours from the periapsis? What the hell? 7 hours, 38 minutes, 7 hours, 35 minutes. Did I really misread the time that badly? See, we've got some relative inclination back, which is kind of unfortunate. You can really hear the sound of all these RCS jets going crazy. But I am trying, you can see I'm trying to make little burns with the RCS to get the relative inclination as good as I can. Hopefully, yeah, we're only burning the aerosine off from this container, so we are going to ditch whatever I don't use. That means I should try my best to use everything. Anyway, we're getting close to ignition here. So I will, actually I should probably have ignited already because I forgot about spool up time, but that's fine. I will just add the RCS thrusters into the mix because why not? I know the Apollo missions in particular did use RCS thrusters for course corrections to make very small changes to their velocity that, might prove too difficult with the service propulsion system. I don't know if they ever used it for anything besides that, like to um, add alongside a burn RCS to get more thrust. I think they just had enough, which is a very competent way to design a rocket. That is derogatory towards myself, for the record. All right. I'm just going to pre-select this so that I have the ability to check the propellant stability before I ignite it. Because it might settle in the time required for separating the stage. So I'm doing basically waiting for the stage to burn out and also trying to get this inclination lower. Just burning until it stops working and then undoing that a little bit. If you see these RCS jets going off, that's why. That's what I'm doing with them. But it looks like we're about to burn out and I'm going to have to settle for this inclination, which is fine. This is honestly a good inclination. So separate that and then ignite these. Ignite these again because I'm stupid and pressed the turn off button. You can see those RCS jets are still going, so they're gonna... I don't know what they're gonna do. I should check up on it later. In real life, I'm not so sure I would trust this docking port that's now in the center of 4 plumes of fluorine and hydrazine exhaust, which is presumably quite hot, in addition to being high in fluorine. In Kerbal Space Program, it doesn't do anything, so I'm gonna exploit that. I'm also noticing our time to periapse is going up. I'm wondering if we should maybe just let this happen. Because this does spool up instantly and it doesn't have limited ignitions, which is quite nice. But this is good enough for me. We have an eccentricity of 0.004, so our orbit is very circular. And now we need to figure out how to get this approach, which is a challenge, because the thing is, if I add a maneuver, let's say here, and get it out to here, I can say, oh, our closest approach should be in this direction, but because I'm meeting that on a different part of the orbit, the amount of thrust required to do that changes. And then the location on where it happens changes. So it's very difficult to A, get an encounter, and B, get a good encounter. And yeah, if I was kind of lame, I could use MechJeb for it, because it does have this wonderful little button. You can do all sorts of things. It's like, just to show, if I press this button, I can just create a node. It's going to say in 4 hours from now, do this, and we can approach here. That's exactly an orbit from now, and look at the maneuver it comes up with. The maneuver is extremely radial, so it's burning away from the moon, very slightly forward, and even more slightly south. So that is just a crazy sort of maneuver. This is not the type of rendezvous I would personally be planning, right? But it is a very good maneuver. Like, it gets us an encounter in 5 hours. It gets us 0 separation, and it does so for 49 meters per second. Whereas if you look at the sort of encounters I'm sort of playing with, I mean, I guess it's fairly obvious that for this to be fuel efficient, we have to meet when our orbits are close to each other here instead of when they're far away. So I suppose there is some logic to that, but I'm still planning on doing things like this. Because what I naturally have the inclination to do here is change stuff. Either bring this apoapsis in or this periapsis out, or widen this orbit, or do something to make this encounter easier. Right? You can fiddle around with this until the end of time, and you will never... You would have to be extremely good at the game to find the encounter MechJeb just gave me. Trust me, I know. I've spent quite a lot of time trying to get encounters like this before. As you can see now that I'm now planning it, I'm getting like 300 meters per second, not really close to encounter sort of situations. Basically trying to get these two arrows as close as possible to each other. So anyway, I guess to save us all the time, fine, I'll do the frickin' maneuver node. You win, MechJeb. Are these thrusters on? We don't seem to be burning Aerosine. Hello. These guys at least are mounted on a tank of Aerosine. It should work. Well, we are turning, so obviously something works, but I don't know if that's because of these reaction wheels or because of the RCS. And I feel like it's the reaction wheels, because we're not actually burning much RCS fuel. Not sure how I feel about that. Anyway, alright, we're getting close to it, so 49 meters per second. It's going to be about a 15-second burn, maybe. Yeah, I don't know why I bothered trying to get close to the maneuver node. This is in exactly the perfectly wrong plane to try and get close to the maneuver node. Because you can see we're swirling around this axis on the nav ball, the normal and anti-normal axis. So that is exactly the opposite of the axis that is orthogonal to the axis on which we're trying to catch the maneuver node here. So we're just going to spin. Spinny, spin, spin. Hello. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this. They're not working. Anyway, okay. It seems we do need to ullage this, which is fine. Let's do... We cannot ullage this because... Are you kidding me? Hello? Do I have any control whatsoever, actually? Um, oh, come on. No? Okay, I'm gonna quick save and quick load. Yes, please. We've missed our encounter, but that's okay. You can see me fix a rendezvous now. Okay. Hello, I would like to thrust, please. This will work. So I don't know what's going on with my RCS. This has potential to be very bad. But now our closest approach is 400 meters. I can live with 400 meters. Target retrograde. So the next step is going to be when we are close to the target, sync our velocity with the target. So get to 0 velocity relative to untitled spacecraft. And then we're going to try to do a docking. Oh, wait, this separation is 63.4. That's not going to work at all. Ugh. Alright, time till transfer is 42 minutes, according to this. Let's see if we can figure out what transfer this guy is calculating. Every time I double click trying to do this, it unsets the target because that's the command to unset a target. It's kind of not helping me. As close as we can get like this. We seem to be able to get like this. This is the slow way to calculate a rendezvous. But I believe I'm going to need it. Because it seems that we have lost RCS. For reasons I don't understand. Which is extremely suboptimal because I need to dock this thing to the other guys. Because if you remember, I will, recite this to you. The intent was for this to go in between the two modules. Like, the lunar module would go at one end and the command module would go at the other. So I might need to detach this, have the command module pick it up, and then have the lunar module come and dock to the other side, because this might not be able to dock. Which is unfortunate, because my original intent was like to undock the two, spread them apart, bring this guy into the middle of it, and just have both of them thrust in. But I'm not going to be able to do that if my RCS decides that it doesn't want to work, which sucks. Okay. Right about there. 9.3. 3. Scooch this around. See, this is definitely the more boring way to find the encounter. Just keep making tiny maneuvers. Because if you keep making tiny adjustments to this, yeah, I don't get it. The node's not quite at the right time, but 6.2 seems to be my local minimum. All right, fine. Okay. MechJeb wants us to make a maneuver right now. Boy, am I glad that I stuck on these couple of radial reaction wheels just for the fun of it, because I am pretty sure they're the only things actually keeping this spacecraft working at the moment. Wait, do I not have NTO? How am I out of NTO? What? That's why it's not working. Somehow all of my nitrogen tetroxide is gone. Did it all get pumped into the stage I left behind by accident? Well, that's a catastrophe. Shit. Okay, so that's why the RCS doesn't work. Got it. Somehow my nitrogen tetroxide, which is extremely stable, just decided to leave the ship. I'm guessing that it all went off into the other stage while I was fucking around with RCS, but I don't know. Maybe the fuel balancer fucked it up. Not very cool. Delete that, create a new node here. And, guess we're gonna have to save and load every time we want to do anything. I know I'm kind of cheating here because doing this artificially resettles my fuel, but I got cheated out of having fuel in my tanks, so don't at me. 7.7 kilometers. You know what? We might just have to make that work and do stuff on the other end. Alternatively, fuck this. Hello. There we go. I am going to cheat to give myself... Stop. I'm going to cheat and give myself the propellant to get this encounter node. And we will still do the docking with the other thing, but I'm just gonna get this correct. Alright, sound good to everybody? Good. Because I don't want to deal with this very tiny lack of NTO from the fuel balancer fucking me up. That's a stupid reason to spend 15 minutes here trying to get this encounter right, in my opinion. If you disagree, tough. That's why I like all these settings. Like, look at this. Biomes visible. So you can see when you look at the moon where it draws the end of a biome. It's clear if we look at this on the map. So this is the map of all the different biomes that real solar system has defined for the moon. So landing in each of these different areas gives you a different set of science. There's actually lots of cool little things around here. Not even just for, cheating purposes, but... Anyway. So current separation, 5 kilometers. I'm just gonna... Yeah, screw waiting for the maneuver. Alright, this is good enough. RCS off. And we're gonna turn off infinite propellant now. I think that's fair. I burned a whole, 2 grams of fucking propellant. Or probably more than that. But I burned, a syringe full of propellant. It's fine. Pretend there's some vapor left in the fuel lines or something that we managed to burn. Stranger things have happened than that. Voyager 1 recently had some RCS thrusters that haven't been working for something like 40 years. Just come back to life. They were able to find the software solution to this thing. Anyway, 297 meters per second. Since I'm not using RCS, I'm going to warp fairly far away and go back to what I was talking about before, where we want to do the sync with target orbit part. And I will be doing one last quick save plus click load glitch to ullage these engines and get the sync done at the proper moment. I don't seem to have my closest encounter markers here. That's kind of disappointing. Does this have rendezvous info? Does this tell me? Yeah, I guess I'm going to use this. So what I want is this time to closest approach thing. Closest approach distance is 3 meters. I did a rather good job fixing that. This says separation 100 meters. This says separation 3. Cool. Anyway, we might be able to see. It's like behind the Earth somewhere. There should be a visible flare for it. If we do orbit, yeah, we are. So this is forward, and it is behind us, and it is very behind us, and a little bit above us. It's just, I don't know. I guess maybe we can't see it at the moment. But it should be somewhere in this sort of direction, behind the spacecraft. Don't worry, we'll see it soon. Anyway. I will do the sinking burn. It's 300 meters per second. Alright. When we're a minute from closest approach, I'll do it. So, again, quick save, quick load. And if you think this is cheating, you should see all of the get out and push strategies. Kerbals on EVA, their jetpacks, I don't know if they ever fixed this, but their jetpacks used to have unlimited fuel in them. Oh, it didn't work this time. No. Well, fine. There. The other cheat. So since the Kerbal jetpacks had infinite fuel in them, you could just use the infinite amount of fuel to go anywhere you like. Just get out and either jetpack yourself places or get behind the capsule and push it places with your face. Literally. So anyway, it is currently 3 kilometers behind us and approaching at 100 meters per second. We are thrusting basically directly away from it according to the nav ball, so still can't see it. There it goes. I don't know how well that comes out on the video because it's very dark, but It has flown away from us. It went underneath us because I started the burn too late because I was struggling with the stuff. That's fine. This is fine. So in 9 minutes, we're going to be 100 meters away, and we're going to have a relative velocity of 2 meters per second. So over here, we are now close enough that I can just switch with keyboard shortcuts, which is quite nice. So this guy is the target. I'm going to go ahead and actually shut down all of the engines. From now on, we're going to do everything with RCS. Which means from now on, we're doing everything with the... with this module. So the other spacecraft is essentially dead to us. Alright. So when we are a little bit closer to it, yep, there it is, directly below us. Now I'm going to sync up the speed with it, using the RCS. This is actually pretty good. We seem to be at a pretty decent orientation for it. For this approach. Alright, so here, what I originally wanted to do... I've done docket from this one, yes. What I originally wanted to do was fly it... Do I need a Kerbal in the lander? I don't, okay. I wanted to do this. So use the RCS, pull this back a while until there was time to fit in between them, then maneuver this in between. And you see what I'm saying, like you could basically just push these two back together and it would work. Unfortunately, this ain't that kind of story. Also, this seems to be spinning, which is not ideal. Can I have this guy SAS? Actually, I could be really clever and on this guy just... Let's show off the powers of KOS. Again. So I can block the steering to heading 90, 0, 0, and I'll try to hold there, and that'll keep running while I'm fucking with this thing. So on the Apollo spacecraft, on the spacecraft itself, I can lock steering to 270, 0, 0, that being 100 degrees opposite of it. What? Oh, heading. So I can lock them to steer in opposite directions from each other. And therefore, they're perfectly aligned. And also because I've done this, my RCS thrusters fire in consistent directions. Because now when I say thrust downwards, it actually does thrust directly downwards, not some other direction, because I know I'm steered perfectly flat. I like to set this docking port as target. And while I'm at it, I will have the lander also steer to 90. And it'll also do that up there. Although I might need to turn on the RCS, I don't remember. So now the docking process is significantly easier, because what we want to do is bring this target indicator directly on top of this spot, because we know what alignment it's in. Might be overzealous with how fast I'm doing this, based on how this is looking. But you can see what I'm basically trying to keep the prograde marker on the side that I'm pushing the nav ball, the marker away from. So now I've fucked it up. I've fucked it up. This should be close enough though. Here we go. This one can stop running software. We're getting the control from this node now. All right, and you can see now our thrusters are actually working because there's a little bit of NTO accessible via the service module. It's because of the way we docked, our solar panels are also almost aligned, which is kind of nifty. Now we would like to, this is going to be, I actually clicked correctly on the first try on the tiny little thing. Oh, that's not as bad as I thought, never mind. Do I need, yeah, over here I need to turn on RCS to have it work correctly. You can see it working way over there. Actually, this is fine. Now we need to thrust upward and a little bit left. Sometimes I get confused by these controls because the buttons for translating are reversed. Like to push yourself up, you press K, and down is I. Which if you look on your keyboard, that means to go up, you press down. If you imagine that as an arrow pad, which is how my brain is working. But the reason for that is that you are basically pushing it. Well, actually, those two are reversed, but left and right aren't, which makes things more confusing. But you are basically pushing the button of the direction you want to not go. The direction the exhaust goes. I don't know, it's weird. I can't say I'm the biggest fan of that. But you can see, compared to the docking issues I had before, this time, thanks to the power of KOS, this is super easy. Because KOS just holds things at the correct angle and I don't have to fuck with it. And that is more like how things work in real life, because it's not like when a NASA spacecraft docks to the ISS, it doesn't mess with, oh, am I at the correct orientation to hit the ISS? No, they know what orientation the ISS holds. I seem to have overshot it again. It's the same trick. Because we're trying to make this go down and right, we keep the prograde vector up and left. And then we slowly bring it in line as it gets where we want it to go. Basically because this target marker will be pushed in the direction we're not away from where we're going. And now that we're roughly there, we can just go forward. And hopefully this won't crash into anything, because I'm now realizing I should have docked this the other way around. Because the command module has a much better shape to dock to this relatively low clearance thing. But I think it's okay, and we'll just try to come in slowly. Excellent. We got it. All right. I don't know what that just did, and I'm very concerned. I'm trying to type to KOS, please. All right. Save like that. Look at our wonderful spacecraft, all assembled in lunar orbit as it was never meant to be. And actually, we do have a pretty good amount of clearance between these engines. I mean, this thruster here is a little bit awkwardly placed directly inside of the engine bell. Or I don't know if that's a thruster or a science instrument. Maybe it's an antenna, but we do actually have clearance, and not just because of bad hitboxes. So that's nifty. All right. Now we commence the rescue mission. So I'm going to use the reaction wheels to damp our roll a little bit. And see if I can start pumping everything that we might conceivably need into here. Except it's not actually pumping. Oh. Oh, this is only transferring electric charge. Oh, there's not going to be crossfeed here. Well, anyways, this has been a nice 2-ish hours, and this feels like a nice place to stop. So join me next time on the next episode of Kerbal Space Program for figuring out how to rescue this vehicle now that we have the rescue vehicle attached. See ya!